Summer 2007, Natanz, Iran. A white Toyota sedan approaches the security checkpoint. The facility ahead is surrounded by fences, guard towers, and surveillance cameras. This is Iran's primary uranium enrichment plant. It's underground and heavily fortified, built to withstand airstrikes. Behind the wheel sits an Iranian engineer in his mid-30s. He works for a German engineering contractor. His company services the facility's industrial control systems. He's been here before. The guards know his face. At the checkpoint, he stops and hands his identification card to the approaching guard. The guard examines it, checks a clipboard, then waves him through with a nod. He parks in the designated slot and retrieves his leather briefcase from the passenger seat. Inside are technical manuals, diagnostic tools, and a USB flash drive no bigger than his thumb. What the guards don't know is that the engineer works for Dutch intelligence. The General Intelligence and Security Service, aka AIVD, recruited him 3 years ago at the request of the CIA and Mossad, Israel's intelligence agency. The USB drive in his briefcase contains the most sophisticated cyberweapon ever created. Codename Stuxnet. Walking to the entrance, he passes through a metal detector and submits to a bag inspection. A guard opens the briefcase and sees the manuals and diagnostic tools, paying no mind to the USB drive. It looks like standard equipment. Once inside, he descends a staircase into the facility that extends deep underground. Down in the control room, technicians monitor rows of computer screens displaying data from the centrifuge halls below, rotation speeds, vibration levels, pressure readings. Greeting the shift supervisor, they shake hands. "Same issue as last week," the supervisor says, pointing to a computer terminal. "Connection keeps dropping." Setting his briefcase on the desk, the engineer grabs a diagnostic laptop. While the supervisor watches, he troubleshoots the network connection by checking cables and running diagnostic software. The connection stabilizes. "Fixed," he says. Thanking him, the supervisor turns back to the monitors, focusing on screen 3, where a pressure reading needs attention. The engineer waits. 5 seconds, 10. He reaches into his briefcase, palms the USB drive, and inserts it into the terminal side port, hidden from view. The screen flickers and a progress bar appears. Installing drivers. After 15 seconds, the bar fills and the installation completes, returning the screen to normal. The engineer removes the USB drive and slides it back into his briefcase. He closes the laptop and tells the supervisor the system is running smoothly now. The supervisor nods without looking up, and the engineer leaves the control room, walks back up to the stairs, and exits the building. He drives through the checkpoint. No one stops him. Behind him, inside the facility's network, Stuxnet begins to spread. The insertion. The virus doesn't activate immediately. It copies itself first, replicating from the control room terminal across every connected computer in the facility's network. The network links hundreds of systems, engineering workstations, operator terminals, and the Siemens programmable logic controllers, also called PLCs, that manage the centrifuges. The virus searches each system and runs diagnostic checks, each taking milliseconds. Once the virus finds a system, it runs its first check. Is this a Siemens Step 7 PLC? It reads the processor identification and compares it against a list. If the model doesn't match, the virus stops and stays dormant. Next, it checks whether centrifuges are connected by scanning for specific device signatures, motor controllers, and frequency converters. If none are found, the virus stops. Then it verifies the centrifuges are arranged in cascades of 164 units, counting connected devices and checking the network topology. If the configuration is different, the virus stops. Finally, it confirms they're spinning at a specific speed by reading the motor settings. If the speed is wrong, the virus stops. On most systems at the Natanz plant, at least one check fails due to the wrong PLC model. No centrifuges connected, wrong configuration, or something else. The virus stays dormant on these machines, invisible and waiting. But in the centrifuge control systems, every check passes. The model is a Siemens Step 7. All centrifuges are connected in groups of 164 bits, cascades of 164 units. The speed is 63,000 RPM. Once this information is collected, Stuxnet activates. Burrowing into the controller firmware, the virus targets the code that manages the centrifuges, how fast they spin, how long they run, and when they shut down in emergencies. Stuxnet rewrites portions of this code with surgical precision, giving itself two capabilities. First, it can lie to the operators. When centrifuges send data to the control room screens, speed, vibration, temperature, the virus intercepts it and replaces it with false readings showing everything is normal, even when it's not. Second, it can manipulate the centrifuges themselves. The virus can speed them up, slow them down, or change their rotation patterns. But not yet. For now, it waits, recording normal operations for days and then weeks, learning exactly how the centrifuges behave when everything is running correctly. This baseline data will help it hide later. The engineers who designed Stuxnet programmed in counter detection measures. The virus spreads slowly, avoids patterns, and blends into the normal network traffic. By the end of summer 2007, Stuxnet has infected every critical system at Natanz. No one knows it's there. The virus is dormant, learning, waiting for the moment to strike. The recruitment. Let's rewind to 2004, Amsterdam, Netherlands, a meeting room inside AIVD headquarters, the Dutch intelligence service. Two men sit across from a senior AIVD officer. One represents the CIA, the other Mossad. They requested Dutch assistance with a covert operation targeting Iran's nuclear program. The CIA officer speaks first. Iran is enriching uranium at Natanz. We estimate they're 3 to 5 years from a functional nuclear weapon. We need to slow them down. The Mossad officer continues. We can't bomb the facility. It's too deep underground. Airstrikes won't penetrate. We need a different approach. The AIVD officer listens and writes notes on a pad. The centrifuges at Natanz are based on a Dutch design, the CIA officer says. Stolen in the 1970s by A.Q. Khan, a Pakistani scientist. He sold the blueprints to Iran, Libya, and North Korea. The AIVD officer nods. Khan had worked for an international supplier of nuclear fuel in Almelo, where he stole centrifuge designs and smuggled them to Pakistan. He built Pakistan's nuclear program, then sold the technology to the highest bidders. The Mossad officer slides a folder across the table. We need someone inside Natanz. An Iranian national, someone who can access the control systems. The AIVD officer opens the folder to find a photograph of an Iranian man with his name redacted. The background summary shows a mechanical engineering degree and employment with a contractor that serviced industrial systems in Iran. Can you recruit him? The CIA officer asks. The AIVD officer studies the file. We'll try. 6 months later, in 2005, the AIVD makes contact. The Iranian engineer is traveling in Europe on business, and the Dutch approach him in a Vienna hotel. The AIVD officer sits across from him with an offer, not a threat. Money, a new life in Europe if things go wrong, including family protection. They explain the mission. Iran's nuclear program is destabilizing the region, and the international community wants it stopped, revealing how he can contribute to stopping an imminent war. The engineer agrees. The AIVD sets up a front company, a German engineering firm that's fake but functional. The company bids on contracts to service Iranian industrial facilities, but its first attempt fails. Iranian security is suspicious, and the firm lacks sufficient history. The Mossad steps in and creates a second front company, more elaborate and more convincing. This one succeeds, winning a contract to service control systems at Natanz. The engineer is hired, becomes a legitimate contractor, gains clearance, and enters the facility regularly. By 2007, everything is ready. The engineer, the USB drive, the virus. All that's left to do is execute the plan. The development. But building Stuxnet took years. Rewind to the early 2000s, Oak Ridge National Laboratory, Tennessee. Inside a secure testing facility, engineers assemble a replica of Natanz's centrifuge hall. In 2003, Muammar Gaddafi agreed to abandon Libya's nuclear weapons program and handed over centrifuges purchased from A.Q. Khan's network, the exact same model Iran uses. American and Israeli engineers study the centrifuges. They measure tolerances, test failure points, running all kinds of tests. Spin a centrifuge to 84,600 RPM, hold it there for 15 minutes, and then drop the speed to 2,000 RPM in 5 seconds, says an engineer. The rotor deforms. The aluminum bends from the stress, the bearings overheat, and microscopic cracks appear in the tube wall. They repeat the test with the same result. The centrifuge fails after 6 cycles. This is the vulnerability, the way to destroy the centrifuges remotely. But executing this remotely requires precision. The virus must manipulate the Siemens PLCs while at the same time avoiding alarm triggers and sending false data to the operators. NSA cryptographers write the code while Israeli programmers contribute. The virus grows complex, exceeding 15,000 lines of code and exploiting 4 zero-day vulnerabilities, meaning that not even Microsoft or Siemens know about these security flaws. The code includes rootkit functions to hide itself, encryption to avoid analysis, and self-destruct timers to erase evidence. The team tests Stuxnet on the replica centrifuges at Oak Ridge. The virus works. The centrifuges spin up, then down, vibrating until the metal starts to tear apart. Within hours, the rotors warp and the centrifuges fail. Israel conducts parallel tests at Dimona, their nuclear research facility in the Negev desert, with the same results. By 2007, Stuxnet is operational. President George W. Bush personally approves the operation, codenamed Olympic Games. The virus is loaded onto the USB drive and delivered to the Dutch AIVD, who pass it to their asset, the Iranian engineer who carries it into Natanz. The attack. Late 2009, Natanz. The centrifuge halls operate 24 hours a day with rows of centrifuges spinning in climate-controlled chambers. Each centrifuge is a narrow aluminum alloy tube, 2 meters tall, where uranium hexafluoride gas spins at 63,000 RPM. The spinning separates uranium into a form usable for nuclear weapons. The process is delicate. The centrifuges must spin at precise speeds. Too slow and enrichment doesn't occur. Too fast and the rotors shatter. 2 years pass. Since the summer of 2007, Stuxnet has been dormant inside Natanz's network, invisible to every security scan and antivirus program. It's been watching the centrifuges spin, recording their normal behavior, learning their patterns. The operators and engineers have no idea it's there. No alarms have triggered, no logs show anomalies, everything appears normal. But the virus has been waiting for this moment. November 2009, Stuxnet activates its attack phase. The virus identifies target Cascade A24, 164 centrifuges linked in series, currently spinning at 63,000 RPM. The virus sends the first command, a single line of code: increase speed to 84,600 RPM. The Siemens PLC receives the command and executes. The frequency converters ramp up power to the motors. The centrifuges begin to accelerate slowly at first, 65,000 RPM, then 70,000. The rotors spin faster as the bearings begin to heat, friction increases, and temperature rises. By 75,000 RPM, the vibration changes, the resonance frequency shifts, and the tubes begin to hum, a low pitch at first, then rising. The speed climbs to 80,000 RPM, and the metal screams. The bearings glow as lubricant vaporizes, and the centrifuges shake on their mounts. The engineers can't hear any of this as the centrifuge halls are sealed behind thick concrete walls. No sound reaches the control room. Finally, 84,600 RPM. Maximum speed. The rotors are spinning beyond design limits, and the aluminum is under extreme stress as the centrifugal force pulls the material outward. Microscopic deformations begin. The operators in the control room see none of this as their screens display 63,000 RPM, normal vibration, and temperature. The virus intercepts every sensor reading and replaces it with false data. One operator glances at monitor 7, which shows Cascade A24, all green indicators. He looks away. 15 minutes pass with the centrifuges screaming at full speed, and suddenly, Stuxnet sends the next command: reduce speed to 2,000 RPM. The centrifuges decelerate violently. The sudden change in momentum bends the rotors, the aluminum deforms, and microscopic cracks appear in the tubes. The virus repeats the cycle: speed up, slow down, speed up, slow down. Each cycle weakens the centrifuges further. 6 hours pass, 8:17 a.m. Centrifuge A24057 fails. The rotor shatters, fragments punch through the tube, and the centrifuge shuts down automatically. Within days, 20 centrifuges in the cascade have failed. Engineers arrive at the hall and shut down the cascade. They extract centrifuge A24057 and disassemble it on a workbench. The rotor is warped and bent. The bearings are scored, and metal particles coat the inside of the tube. Heat damage is visible. But the materials are correct, the manufacturing tolerances are within specification, and the gas supply is clean with no foreign contaminants. The failure makes no sense. They replace the failed units, install new centrifuges, and resume operations. Stuxnet attacks again, targeting a different cascade, this time with the same pattern. Speed up, slow down, repeat. January 2010. Over 1,000 centrifuges have failed in less than 3 months, far exceeding the normal annual failure rate of 200. Something is very wrong. Senior engineers meet to review maintenance logs and inspection reports, but nothing explains the failures. The centrifuges are Iranian-made, but based on proven designs, they should be reliable. One engineer suggests sabotage by foreign agents, but security reports no breaches and no unauthorized access. No one checks the computers. The control systems show no errors, the logs are clean, and every sensor reading was normal. What they don't know, the logs are lies. The virus has rewritten them. By June 2010, over 1,000 centrifuges have been destroyed. Iran's enrichment capacity dropped significantly. The program is crippled. The discovery. June 17, 2010, Minsk, Belarus. A small cybersecurity firm called Virus Blokada receives a report from an Iranian client about computers at Natanz nuclear facility crashing, while antivirus software can't find the problem. Sergei Ulysin, a researcher at Virus Blokada, analyzes the infected system by running a memory dump, scanning the registry, and examining running processes, finding something unusual. A unique type of virus hidden deep in the computer software. He isolates it and begins reverse engineering the code, realizing it targets Siemens industrial control systems with specific models and configurations. He publishes a report, and security researchers around the world download samples to start analyzing. Ralph Langner, a German industrial control systems expert, examines the code and notices it's searching for centrifuges, specifically Iranian centrifuges. He publishes his findings. This is a weapon designed to sabotage Iran's nuclear program. The media picks up the story with headlines like "Cyberweapon targets Iran" and "Stuxnet, the first digital weapon of war." The International Atomic Energy Agency inspectors at Natanz confirmed the reports. They've been documenting unusual centrifuge failures for months, with over 1,000 units destroyed, far beyond normal. Iran's government issues a statement admitting that Stuxnet infected their systems while claiming they've removed it and are replacing the damaged centrifuges. Privately, Iran launches an investigation as they want to know how the virus entered the facility and who installed it. Iranian security services arrest workers at Natanz. 17 people, including engineers, technicians, and control room operators. Interrogations last for weeks. Some are released after questioning with files stamped "cleared." Others disappear into the Evin prison in Tehran, their files classified. According to 2 sources, one Dutch, one Israeli, at least one person connected to the operation is executed, though the identity is never confirmed publicly. The Dutch AIVD attempts extraction by sending an encrypted message to the engineer, a prearranged signal that means "get out now, meet at the safe house in Dubai." No response. They sent it again, still nothing. The last confirmed contact with the engineer was June 2010, the month Stuxnet went public. Meanwhile, cybersecurity experts continue dissecting Stuxnet and find fingerprints, code strings that match known NSA tools and references to Israeli dates, exposing the obvious collaboration. In 2012, the New York Times publishes an investigation confirming what many suspected. Stuxnet was a joint US-Israeli operation codenamed Olympic Games, approved by President Bush and expanded by President Obama. 7 years later, Yahoo News reveals the final piece of the puzzle: the Dutch mole, the engineer who physically inserted the virus into Natanz. The full story of Stuxnet is now public, but the impact of what happened at Natanz extends far beyond 1,000 destroyed centrifuges. The aftermath. Stuxnet didn't just destroy centrifuges, it changed warfare. Before Stuxnet, cyberattacks targeted data, stealing secrets and disrupting communications but causing no physical damage. After Stuxnet, the rules changed. The code became a weapon that could destroy physical infrastructure. Russia studied Stuxnet and developed their own cyber weapons. In 2015 and 2016, they shut down parts of Ukraine's power grid through digital attacks that caused physical blackouts. North Korea became a target when the US and Israel attempted to deploy a Stuxnet variant against North Korean nuclear facilities, but the operation failed. North Korea's systems were air-gapped, physically isolated with no internet connection and no external USB access, so the virus never reached its target. Iran rebuilt their nuclear program by replacing the destroyed centrifuges, increasing security, isolating critical systems from networks, and developing their own cyber capabilities. The Iranian engineer who carried it into Natanz and risked everything? His name remains classified. His fate remains unknown. But his mission succeeded. Iran's nuclear program was set back years, buying crucial time and eliminating their ability to produce weapons-grade uranium in the near term. Over 1,000 centrifuges destroyed, production capacity crippled, the threat of an Iranian nuclear weapon delayed. Whether Stuxnet prevented a war or simply postponed one remains an open question, but for those who designed it, the operation achieved its goal. Slow down Iran's nuclear program without firing a shot, without an airstrike, without an invasion. It remains the most successful cyber attack in history and the most dangerous precedent ever set.